Hey, everybody, welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. Almost forgot the name of my show there. I'm your host, Chris Bello, and today I've got Kayla Ybanez with me, who is a business strategist. Kayla, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And I laugh because it's like doing intros while you're staring at the person is hard. It's one of the hardest things.
They're sitting there intently waiting for you to finish, and then you're just stammering over your words like I did, but one thing that we connected with on the call earlier today is that we're both just authentic, let it roll. It's okay if there's issues or errors with our delivery. We are authentic, real people, and we make mistakes sometimes.
Exactly. And I think that these podcasts are the most fun because people listening feel like they're in on a conversation with us compared to those rigidly edited ones that feel like an ancient documentary on a big TV. Like, no thanks.
That's such a good point. But in any case, it's great to have you here. We don't have any special sound effects or anything like that. It's just real, authentic conversation. And our audience gets to be a fly on the wall and hear kind of what we have to say today. So once again, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to dive into your story, how you got to where you are. And we're also going to talk about finding your ideal client and knowing what's a good fit and when do you set boundaries? How do you say no to clients that aren't a good fit? So tell us about your story.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I come from a background in marketing as far back as the MySpace days. I actually got my start working with some of the actors in High School Musical, which as the years go by, there's less and less people that know what it is. And I feel like something that was really cool about me is no longer cool, which breaks my heart. But it's cool. Fellow millennials, and you said you like Disney, Chris, so you better know High School Musical.
Oh, I've heard of it for sure. I know we have Disney Plus. We watch it all the time.
Yes, such a fun time in my life. But like a lot of people, I started in such an amazing industry, made amazing connections, probably could have taken over the world when I was 18. But like a lot of people, you want to go to college and have a traditional college experience. So I took everything that I learned and I moved out to Chicago to go to a very expensive art school, learned a ton, made a lot of connections, met my now husband, and we stayed in Chicago. And something else that people should know about me is when I decide I want something, I just go after it immediately.
I love that.
I don't sit on things. I just take action right away. So when I was like, hey, we should probably see if we can have kids, we knocked that out immediately. So I have 2 kids, they're 8 and 6, and being a young mom is fun. And I think it's really shaped who I am because like a lot of people as well, when you have kids and you have responsibilities other than yourself, taking the risky road feels irresponsible. So I did what a lot of people do. I went into that traditional 9-to-5 energy, worked for other people, went from restaurant management to working for a heating and cooling company as a dispatcher, which is, people are like, really, Kayla? You went from marketing and events and cool stuff like Disney to being a heating and cooling dispatcher? It's
not your dream job,
I'm a hustler.
Right? You got to do what you got to do.
Had to make money. We did not come from much. My husband works in IT, so there were some unpredictabilities with his job. And I was always the person, you know what? I'm going to be a provider. I'm going to bring in money. I'm not going to sit back. So I've worked a lot of odd jobs. I love sharing these because people are like, Kayla, you're insane. I worked for a, like a restoration company, like a dry cleaner. When people had fires in their homes, I would sort through items and tag them to be clean. I did that when my son was an infant. I worked for a shoe store. I did retail in a jewelry store and a very popular place to get lotion and candles. I did all the things. And I was the queen of working multiple jobs at once. Also delivered groceries. I did everything because...
Wow. Yeah, you really did.
Yeah, we needed money and I was going to go and do it. And so I was the person working 3 jobs, 7 days a week, 60 hours, never seeing my family. And all of that came to a screeching halt when my daughter, who was 3 at the time, out of nowhere, almost died from sepsis, which was caused from an unknown cause bone marrow failure. So to save on some of the medical spiel, you have an immune system that fights bacteria. So if you get a cold, you get better. Well, she got an infection and her body was essentially dead and it couldn't fight it. And so thankfully, doctors and surgeons caught it in time, but we spent a year and a half living in the hospital because she had zero immune system trying to figure out what was wrong and fix it. So I went from working 3 jobs, barely bringing in a total of 35 a year, to not working at all, which was like, oh no, we're already robbing Peter to pay Paul. Now
Yeah.
what are we going to do?
Right.
I will say that we were not completely down and out. The community really rallied around us and supported us so that we could pay our rent, even though we weren't living there. So we joke it was an expensive storage unit.
Yeah.
We always had food, and the Ronald McDonald House is another resource, which I always plug when I tell my story, because they provided a place for us to sleep and shower and made us feel normal.
That's awesome.
So we lived there for a year and a half. And so I'm sitting in the hospital like, what am I going to do? The only time my employer, my main employer, my 9-to-5, if you will, called to check on us was when they wanted to know when I was coming into work. So I had to make a tough decision to leave my daughter, who was 3. She was a baby in a hospital, not knowing what was going on, to go and work for someone else because we needed to pay bills. Creditors didn't care that my daughter was sick. So I had moments that really hit me. And one in particular I want to share with you guys today is my daughter, who was, maybe she was 4 by this point. She was very, very ill. And I had to go to work, and I felt so guilty. And I taught her how to pick up the room landline phone so that I could call and check on her, because I felt so bad. Like, her nurses, she was taken care of. She was fine. But it was that feeling of teaching my 4-year-old how to pick up a phone so that I could check on her, because I had to leave her alone so that we could pay our bills. And of course, my husband, he had to work. The health insurance was through him. And I was like, this is insane. Like, what are we going to do when we get out of here? How are we going to live? Because of course, community rallying around us, that's not forever. So I had a ticking time bomb. And so I shared our story a lot on social media. We gained a lot of attention, a lot of support and resources, and so much to help find answers for her. And people started asking me questions about Instagram. They're like, how are you doing this? How are you getting followers? How are you doing all these things? And so to kind of wrap up my origin story, if you will, I built a business out of realizing that, holy crap, people they actually pay for my expertise. And I had been sitting on it for literally the past 10 years. So
that is amazing.
It's crazy. It's like some people like myself, we ignore signs of like, hey, what are you doing? You're supposed to be over here. And
Right.
So the universe was basically like, we tried to give you signs. I look back now and I recognize all of them, right? Hindsight's always 20/20. So the universe was like, hey, we're going to put you as far down rock bottom as you can get to see if you'll wake up. And so Thankfully I got the sign, and the rest is history.
You know what's crazy? I just wanted to share, not to hog the story. I mean, I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I had no idea about that, about your story in that whole situation. Yeah. So that was your back against the wall. But my brother was just shadowing me yesterday, and a guest that I recently interviewed, multimillionaire, owns a couple apartment complexes in Houston. And he's literally doesn't have like 4 followers on any platform. He has like no social media presence. So to him, he's thanking us for coaching him, and he's offering to pay me to teach him this stuff. And I'm like, I don't even have a crazy following. I mean, I grew my podcast, but like, I'm trying to figure everything out myself. But what you said there, people are willing to pay you for what you know. Here's a guy who I went to his house last week, and trust me, I think he's doing well. He's got secret gun room, like a cool office that's 2 stories, all, the whole 9 yards. And he's willing to learn from my brother and I mean, 30-year-old and a 25-year-old, just because we know something that he does not know. And so, like you said, just because you know it doesn't mean that someone else does, and you're able to charge for that. But I think it's really difficult at first when you don't even know your own value. How do you even come up with that? So I'm sure you started to figure that out over time, right?
Yeah. And honestly, it's like looking back now that we're a little bit removed, we came home from the hospital from that long stay, April of 2019. And my daughter she had her final surgery, it was a 14-hour surgery, final one to basically repair everything and set her free was 2 months ago. So this is
That's still very fresh.
Yeah. And she's 6 now, which is just blows my mind. She's 6 going on 30. But the biggest thing was, I say, who the heck starts a business while their kid's in the hospital. It's people are like, how the heck did you do that? And it was like,
That's awesome.
You have to compartmentalize. It's like when I'm with her. And then I'm in my little in the corner of her room, sitting on the bed with the little table, that goes over the hospital bed. I'd steal it from her.
Right.
And use that as my desk. Like, she takes a nap, I'm getting stuff done. And that's the biggest thing, is you got to just take action and start doing something. That was the biggest thing.
I love that.
People are like, I just don't know what to do. I don't have clarity. Well, if you're not taking action, I promise you're never going to get any clarity. Because I didn't have clarity on how I was paying my rent the next month. So it's like, well, we're going to try this and see what happens.
I think I've heard that quote, rock bottom is a solid foundation to build upon, because it's sturdy.
Oh, that's good.
And when your back is against the wall and you really have nothing to lose, there's another book that I've read, Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain. When you have nothing to lose, I mean, you start to try the things that you would have previously said, it might not work. Now you're like, it might work. Let's try it, right?
Exactly. And really, it's like, sometimes I feel like maybe it's a little bit of PTSD, honestly. It's like, I struggle to take myself back to those early days because it was hard. But my biggest takeaway, like, from that time was, when people, they want to wait for a better time or the right time to take action. And I joke, but I say seriously, that if I was waiting until it felt right, I wouldn't have started until maybe a month ago. And I certainly wouldn't have built a nearly $1 million revenue business.
Right. That's amazing.
Insane. And I don't talk about money that much, not on my platform, because it doesn't really matter to my audience, but like,
it's a scorecard in a way.
I used to make 35 before taxes from working 3 jobs. And now I make that in a month. It still blows my mind to say it out loud, because I just don't talk about it that much.
That's incredible. And I mean, same thing, I don't want to brag about it. And that's what this millionaire guy was saying. He's like, I don't know, I don't want to be Grant Cardone on social media, but I kind of want to have, flaunt it a little to show that I have the credibility. And that's the balance that we're all playing. I'm like, dude, look, you got a McLaren, you have a nice mansion. You should show that, like, humbly, so people know you're not just one of the gurus who doesn't have it, but don't always brag about it, right? Because like you said, I mean, $35K a year to that in a month is a huge difference. Working 3 jobs, what did you say, 80 hours a week, 60 hours a week?
Probably around 60. I mean, 7 days a week, leaving before the sun comes up. The sun is way down by the time I get home. Yeah.
Gosh, it's crazy. And so it's an amazing, because a lot of people are stuck in that. Maybe some people right now listening to this podcast, they may be stuck in that, working multiple jobs, and they're always in that grind where they never can recharge and have that space to think about, how do I get the 30,000 foot view, think bigger? Maybe they're missing out on opportunities because they're so busy going to that minimum wage job, one to the next, that they can't see that if they had, like, a real estate license or some, maybe a person in their life who needs a service that they can offer and they can charge for, but they just don't create that time in their life. We talked about this earlier. Everyone's got time, whether you agree or not. We just have to make the time and make it a priority. But it can be very difficult. So I appreciate your story. And I think a lot of people in the audience are going to resonate with that. And that, wow, I don't have any excuses. Look what she did and what she overcame despite all the challenges.
Absolutely. And of course, a big piece there, and you kind of alluded to it, was having someone in your corner. So I actually casually reached out to a friend of mine who was, while I'm in the hospital, freaking out. She's living her best life, like out in Cali, doing all the things. And I was jealous of her for so long. Like, oh, must be nice is what I would say all the time.
Life,
must be nice to be able to do that. And she did a post, she started kind of in life coaching and was transitioning to business coaching. So like, and I had known her forever. And I was like, you should coach me, just super casually. And next thing you know, we're on like a sales call, if you will. And I'm like crying, probably the first time I had really cried about it in months. And I joke. And I was like, and I was in tears. And she said, all right, I'm going to send you the invoice. But she didn't really say that. I always tell the story with that joke and just to mess with her, because she's like, I did not do that. I'm like, no, you didn't. No, you were solid. But she was the person who was there while I was freaking out and had no idea what I was doing. But she knew. I'd like to say that she knew what I was capable before I ever did, of like, I've known Kayla for years. I knew where she's come from and her experience. Like, she's going places. I'm going to take her under my wing and help pull that out of her.
Yes. And it's so crazy because I guess I'm kind of there too sometimes where I've seen some success and I'm like, wow, that was a pretty good month. Was it a fluke? And then 2 months later, I had a bigger month this in 2020. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm getting the hang of this. I don't want to get too cocky, but I think I have some of this figured out. But at the same time, I still have the self-doubt. Even though I have a record month, I'm like, well, can I do a 50K month, a 100K month? And what about that guy? That guy's closing more deals and that guy's doing it 10 years younger than me. He figured it out way faster, right? We're always playing that comparison game. But I like to say that it's always about comparing and competing with yourself instead of your neighbor.
Absolutely. And the biggest thing is we're always looking for evidence to support why something won't work. I feel like it's it's ingrained. It's when something works, it's always got to be a fluke or luck. And it's like, and anytime something good happens, and one of my mindset coaches, he calls me out for this all the time. He's like, Kayla, why are you always trying to find an issue? Why are you trying to create an issue out of nothing? And I'm like, oh, crap, you're right. And we do that to ourselves. It's like, oh, well.
Why do we do that?
I don't know. I wish I knew. When people say, man, you're so good at helping me out with this, Kayla, it's like, well, because I did the same darn thing and someone had to pull me out of the hole.
That's true. And I think it takes a lot of those, like you said, people saying it subtly and maybe you're not getting that message. And wow, people keep saying I'm good at social media and they keep asking for my help. This could be an offer that I make to anyone who wants to work with me. Make a program, make a coaching system, monthly basis, recurring income, and that's where the gears start to turn. But at first, when you haven't done anything, you're like, well, who am I to charge? I don't really know it. I kind of know it, right? So
exactly. And here's the thing too, like when people say, why me? I say like, why not you?
I love that.
Yeah, why not? And I wait for them to give me a reason. They never can.
They're just trying to shut themselves down. We like to self-sabotage sometimes because we're afraid of change oftentimes. It's just uncomfortable, right?
Of course, right? And I think the reason why we do that as well, it's to protect ourselves, right? Protect our egos mostly. Because if there's a bump in the road and something starts to veer off path, it's like, oh, see, Kayla told you that was going to happen. I knew it. And it's like, why are we trying to, always look for the wrong evidence? So I challenge my clients all the time. Like, what if you just sat down today and only looked for reasons to support why this is working?
That's such a huge paradigm shift. I love that.
And then you're so open. Like I just had something the other day when I was like, I'm never going to sign another client. No one's going to want to work with me. And I'm like, wait a minute. Let's pause and check this.
Look at all these clients I have now.
And then sign 2 new clients later that day. And I was like,
love it.
See? And I'm not super woo, but I like to believe that the universe is like sending you signs. But when you're nitpicking yourself, you're never going to be open to them.
Absolutely. We talked about that earlier. I have a client where every time I'm like, hey, how's it going today? He's like, I don't know. You tell me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why are you starting this call off on such a negative foot versus being positive and being like, it's going great. I can't wait to see what happens today. I know something amazing is going to happen. I'm meeting all the right people. I'm taking all the right actions. And then the woo stuff, I'm not super woo. I am kind of woo. I just meditated like right before this. But the woo stuff happens. If
you meditate, you're woo because I don't meditate.
Yeah, I'm a little woo. I've meditated twice today, but it was because I needed to after talking to that client, right? We talked about clients that you take on that end up stressing you out and not really being the best fit. So I'm a little bit woo, but it's amazing when that stuff happens and you're like, it can't just be coincidental. Maybe just because you're focusing on it more, you find what you focus on, right? Where focus goes, energy flows. I think Tony Robbins said that. So true. Because then you start to pop up on your radar.
And when good things happen and when you try to tell yourself it's a fluke, it's like, what if you paused and looked behind you, right? And saw all the steps you took that led to that point. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't by chance. You worked and you planned for this. We just don't always have control over when it comes to fruition.
This is amazing. A lot of people in the audience probably can resonate with this as well because, I mean, high performers, high achievers, we're always on to the next thing. We might have a goal, we hit it, and we don't even take time to celebrate it. We're just moving on to the next goal.
So true.
We really need to make sure to look back, like you said, at all the things that we've done because, yeah, you might hit 10K, but now you're looking at the guy or gal who has 30K, and you're like, well, that person's making more, doing less, versus being happy and patting yourself on the back because where you are now, hopefully, for everyone listening, is much further than you were 2-3 years ago, or maybe even yesterday. Just slowly get better every single day.
Absolutely. And also not even just like practicing gratitude for where we are, like thank the people, not like thank, but like thank them, yes, but also be like grateful for the people that invested in you and believed in you and have contributed to this in some way. I feel like sometimes we're always looking for that dollar amount number, or I want to sign 10 clients. It's like those, even let's say you aim for 10 and you sign 3. On one side, you might be pissed, like, oh, I wanted 7 more.
Yeah.
But what if you switched it to, I am so grateful that 3 people believed in me and my mission enough to invest. 3 whole people. Like,
that's so
crap.
true. That is so true. I have a friend similar to your friend who I'm paying to coach me, and I'm creating a course for real estate agents to improve their productivity. And I'm doing these calls and trying to sell people on it. And of course, getting the webinars. And I was a little frustrated. I'm like, well, okay, I only had 8 people show up. And he's like, dude, 8 whole people showed up. I think it was 8 or 9. And he was on the call too, kind of just giving me feedback at the end. He's like, 8 people jumped on the call and they stayed throughout the whole thing, even your pitch. They listened to it. Maybe no one bought right away, but they listened to it. That's amazing. And even if you get 1 sale, if you keep doing this and you get 1 sale or 2 sales, imagine how much impact you could have on that person's life or 2 people's life. Because I'm like, I don't want to do all this and only get 1 sale. I want like 20 sales right out the gate, right?
Of
and
course.
So I love what you said there about looking at it from the other lens. Instead of how many below am I, look at it, how many did I get above 0? Anything helps. It's a start.
Yeah. And we always learn. It's like, if you've never done something before, we don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah.
But no matter what, you're going to learn something. You're going to learn what you like and what you don't like, so that next time you try it, you can take some things out, add other things. So no matter what, you're getting a lesson out of it, which is sometimes more valuable than making a sale.
Absolutely. So your business now, what is your primary focus for 2021? I know we talked a little bit about the strategies that I use in real estate. I'm sure you're using some similar ones, and you said you haven't had to really do paid marketing for your clients. You're funneling it in from your other business. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I have 2 businesses. I have my business consulting Instagram strategy side, which is my coaching business, course creation, where I help business owners attract dream clients without sending cold messaging. So that is on that side.
Cool.
I work a lot with small business owners, direct sellers, network marketers to really help them build a sustainable and scalable business that prioritizes the customer. So that's been an industry disruptor. My podcast is the Stop the Hey Girl podcast, in lieu of, getting away from sending spammy messages to people who you don't know. And then my business I just started at the very tail end of 2020 is a boutique social media marketing agency that uses my systems that I teach my clients, but I have a team of professionals that executes them on behalf of clients that are just like, you know what, Kayla?
Can you just do it?
My time is valuable and I don't want to waste time doing this. I want to spend time with my family and leave my business in good hands. And that's where we step in.
Very cool. And I've heard of that. I guess my CPA, he's very into marketing, and I think he's in like Dan Kennedy's mastermind or something. So he's always giving me good tips. And we talk more about that than my actual like finances, which is funny. And my girlfriend works at the firm. That's how I kind of know him. But he was mentioning that, a lot of people are lazy. Even with my productivity course, he's like, that's great, but is it something they really want? They may need it, but do they want it, right? And he said oftentimes, which is what resonated with what you just said, it's just easier to offer things as a service because people want the thing done. They want the outcome, but they don't necessarily want to do it all the time. And so I love what you did there in terms of offering that to people who just want to outsource it to you. You take care of it, they pay you, everybody's happy, and your team does it for you, and you just focus on doing that better and scaling it up.
Exactly. And there's a different kind of consumer. Like the consumer for my coaching business is very different than the consumer for my agency business. There's people that want to be taught and do it themselves. And there's people who get to that level, or maybe they're always that person who just really sees the value in the fact that they can always make more money, but they can't get time back.
Right. So just the way that you're framing everything, I mean, I can tell you understand these concepts. A lot of entrepreneurs at the beginning of their journey, and I mean, I'm kind of still more on that beginning stage as well, but I think I've learned enough to know about buying your time back, and you don't have to learn everything on your own. but this is a new concept for a lot of people who just start off. So people in the audience, if you're newer and you're just getting started, really listen to what we're talking about here, because buying your time back, that's a different strategy than wanting to actually invest in yourself and learn something. So if you're trying to become an expert at something, by all means, invest in yourself. But if that thing is not your key component or not what you really want to do with your own time, but it needs to get done, you can hire someone like Kayla's team to take care of those tasks for you.
Exactly. And I know that another topic we wanted to touch on today was working with the right clients.
Yes. Let's talk about that. I need some advice.
Because we have both had some hard lessons, right, of working with the wrong people and how it impacts you in business and outside of business. And I know the biggest thing coming to mind, probably for some people listening, is, well, when I'm first starting, or I need money, so beggars can't be choosers, I'm just going to take everyone that comes to me. And I believe everyone has to do that when they start, to learn the hard lesson, hopefully sooner rather than later, about the repercussions of working with the wrong person.
Definitely. So how would you define the wrong person? Is it someone who you enjoy working with, or they have the same values as you, or is it a combination of those things?
I would say the biggest thing that defines someone as a wrong person, I think there's two big ways to describe them. And sometimes it's both of these together. Sometimes it's just one. The first one is, it's someone who you just don't jive with, whether it's a personality thing, a moral or belief standpoint. I feel like it depends on, the level of importance to you. But if it's just someone who you wouldn't get along with, like if I wouldn't hang out with you, I don't want you as a client.
That's
just
a good
personally.
That.
It's like, because we're going to be spending a good amount of time together to some capacity. So if I wouldn't enjoy your company, I'm not going to want to get on a call with you for an hour every single week or more. So that's doing a disservice to you as the potential client. The second piece is, if you want something that I can't help you with. This was the first lesson I learned when I got the lady balls to tell someone who wanted something I couldn't provide that, no, I'm not the person for you. And let me tell you the story real quick, because it's such a good story. So I primarily started helping people with just Instagram at the beginning, and then I kind of expanded to more business principles as I learned and all that jazz. But I had someone who basically said, I just want like a ton of likes and a ton of followers. And through asking her questions to try to dig deeper to hopefully a more meaningful goal underneath that, it wasn't happening. She just wanted to look Instagram famous. Mm-hmm. And it's not what I do. I help people make money, not just look cool. And so when I said, hey, love what you want to do, I just don't think I'm the best fit, like, for what you need. And stern as ever, she says, well, what do you do? And we were on the phone, so it was in that tone. And baby business Kayla screamed inside, like, I'm being challenged. And it was one of the most proud moments I ever did. Was I took that second after that punch in the gut to recover. And I was like, well, I help people build meaningful, sustainable, scalable businesses. I don't focus on vanity metrics. And she was silent. Ooh. And she's like, so who do you recommend? And in some of those cases, like, if what they want is something that's ridiculous, and I would never send this individual to my enemy, let alone a friend, I will usually just say, I'll think about it and get back to you.
And you never do. Love it.
She was a nice girl up until that dig. But what she wanted was just more of a vanity metric thing. And there are plenty of Instagram mentors that help people with just cheap vanity things. And you know what? That's their arena. They can go over there. So I recommended her out. She was ready to pay. She's like, I'm ready to go. This is what I want. I'll pay, your hourly rate. And I was like, nope.
That's a really powerful lesson.
I hung up that phone. I did like a cartwheel. And what's so powerful is I signed 2 clients that night. And here's the thing too. When you take on the wrong client, you are taking up space that deserves to be held for a dream client. So when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So making sure that you're saying yes to the right thing.
Yes. And everyone listening, rewind this back 30 seconds and listen to that 3 times over, because that is what I wish I had heard sooner. And I love how you said you did a cartwheel afterwards and you still got 2 clients. I mean, it's amazing. When you have that confidence and that you know your stuff, and that other people want to work with you, it is amazing. You do attract clients. Whenever you say no, it's, they almost want to work with you more because they see you as harder to reach. I had a similar experience where, someone's like, hey, Chris, I know we're talking to other real estate agents as well, but we know you're on our list. And I kind of was curious, how many people are you working with? And when we got off the call, I don't know if it was, I like to think it was confidence. My girlfriend sometimes says it's ego. I was like, he's already working with me. He just doesn't know it yet. And I swear when I followed up next week, hey, how's it going? Did you make a decision? Hey, Chris, we're really excited. I talked to my wife. We decided to go with you. I'm just like, knew it, pat on the back. It was a done deal. And it's because when you have that confidence, and he even asked if I was going to cut my commission at all. And I said, I'm at the level now where I don't do that anymore. I value my time, and I know my clients do as well. And so I hope you understand that I can't do it. And so he actually still worked with me. And I just said, imagine this, if I cut my commission, I'm not going to be as incentivized to work on your house if I have other clients that are paying me more, right?
Ooh, that's good.
That was a good one.
And that's so powerful too. Like people will ask you things like that, like about a discount, or my favorite is the people that assume that because they bought one of my $30 courses 3 years ago, that they get something new for free. I'm like, that's cute, but no. And it's like, you think you're doing them a favor sometimes, and that, moral compass on point. It's like, no, like when people, and this is not my quote, but it's a good quote. I don't know whose it is, but when people pay, they pay attention. So when you discount them, you're doing a disservice to them. So it's cheating you and it's cheating them. Nobody wins. So why do we do it?
That's so true. And I have friends who do that sometimes. They'll still do that. Like one of my friends has a dry cleaning, delivery and pickup service. And my girlfriend ordered, delivery through the app, and we got the laundry done or whatever. And he's like, hey man, I hit you up with a 15% discount. And I'm like, well, thank you. But you don't have to just discount the stuff because I'm your friend. I don't mind paying full price and supporting you in your business. I secretly was like, cool, 15% off. But
oh yeah, like when someone does that out of the kindness of their heart, like receive it, because you know what, you're gonna pay it forward energetically. Absolutely. And referrals. But yeah, with being the friend that asks for discounts, no,
don't do it.
True friends happily pay full price.
That is such a good tip. And especially if you have business owner friends. I know everyone in the audience here probably is a business owner or aspires to be one soon or is entrepreneurial. But there's so many times that our friends may ask us for discounts on things because we're buddies, when really business owners understand that you shouldn't ask for discounts, because that's how they make their living. That's how they pay their bills and their children's, school supplies and all those things. They need that income, and they add a certain amount of value, right? So we have to pay them accordingly.
Yeah. And it really, it's standing firm in your boundaries. And again, a real friend respects when you say no, and even challenging them. Like if I came into your place of work and wanted something for free, what would you say?
Right.
And most of the time they'd be like, well, I can't do that. So why are you asking me to?
That's such a good tip. And another tip for those in the audience, if you join relevant Facebook groups into your category, you'll see how people handle these objections and things like that. For example, I'm in some real estate ones, and people constantly ask, how do you handle that when someone asks for a discount in your commission? And that was one of the responses, was like, ask them if you can get some of their paycheck whenever they work overtime. and they would say no, right? It was kind of a joke, because if you made that comment, or if I said, if your boss asked you to work late, would you be willing to do it for free? And they probably wouldn't, right? If they're salaried, then maybe, but usually if they're hourly, they're going to get paid time and a half. So why would they expect you to do the same thing without valuing your time the same way? It just takes a question sometimes to help open their eyes, because they have no idea.
And that's so true, right? They don't necessarily, some people don't understand this industry and understand that that's pretty disrespectful. I feel like there's a difference. Like if you have something to offer, you can do like a service exchange, right? Because that's still an energetic exchange. If it was something that each person was going to buy anyway, and it's about equal, sure, swap services. But that's different than just saying, hey, can I get a discount?
Yeah, very good point. So on your client intake, how does your process look? I know we have a couple minutes because I want to make sure you have time to eat before your next appointment. But I just wanted to ask that one question. Do you have any client intake, like a form, or how do you really vet them? Is it on that initial call that you get the vibes?
It definitely through the application process. So the biggest question I love to ask is, why do you want to work with me? If someone can't give a thoughtful answer to that, I'm not entertaining it, because it's like, if you haven't, like, I want someone to spend time with me, ingest my content, get to know me as a person, me as a mentor before they invest. I think because I want them to be a full body heck yes. So if they can't answer that question, then it's not a good fit. The second question I like to ask is, why do you want to take action now? Because there's no point in us getting on a sales call if you're not ready to act now. I want to respect my time and I want to respect your time. So that's huge too. Depending on the service or the container, another question I ask is like, why are you a good fit for this? Of course, depending on their answer, that would make sense. Because again, I'm looking out for them. Based on their answer, if it doesn't fit, I'm going to tell them, hey, you want this. This container provides that. It's not a good fit. Let me make a better recommendation. And then probably my last question is on an application is going to be commitment to making the investment. Like I say, working with me on this is going to be a 4-figure investment. If you're not ready to make that at this time, that's okay. This just isn't a right fit for you. I'm working with people who are ready to make a substantial investment for this substantial outcome. And so I do multiple choice, like, heck yes, let's go. Heck yes, I need a payment plan, because people make fun of me. Even if I have the money, I always do a payment plan. It's something I'm actively working through.
Yes. Just like the cash flow, you're like, well, it's
yeah. I'm like, I'll pay, the 10% increase to do the payment plan.
I do that too sometimes. I'm just like, it hurts less every month, but I know it's an investment in myself,
Like, we're going on a tangent, but it's okay. Afterpay. I use Afterpay every time it's available.
Why?
My mentor, my bookkeeper, she's like, why? It's there. I'm like, I don't know.
You can just buy it up front.
Yes, but there's no interest. It's silly. It's silly, and it makes bookkeeping harder. I apologize, bookkeeper.
Yes.
And then of course I have I'm not financially ready, because when they answer that investment question, that's them micro converting themselves on the offer. They're making the decision. Am I ready or am I not ready? And obviously if they say, exactly, if they're not ready, I'm not even going to entertain it. You come back when you're ready. I'm here for you. I embrace you. But as a whole with the application, another thing I look at is, are they giving thoughtful answers? Like, you don't have to write me a novel, but if you can't even give me complete sentences, I'm not going to entertain it. Because if you can't take the time to fill that out, you're not going to give the time to do the work required when we work together.
I love that. And I wrote all those things down. So everyone, you can listen to it again, but those are really good questions, because when you ask them, those people can kind of self-select, and you can tell whoever's lazy, whoever just barely filled it in, they're not going to probably be the best fit, because they're not going to do their homework. They're not going to do what you recommend. They're not going to take action, most likely. So very good tips. But I want to make sure you get a chance to eat before your next appointment.
Oh, we're good.
And so where can our audience go to find you, to connect, to listen to your podcast?
Absolutely. So my podcast is the Stop the Hey Girl podcast. You can go over there and listen to Chris's episode, which I highly recommend. After you listen to this one, head over to my podcast and listen to that one. Spend some more time with us, just chit-chatting.
Yeah.
And I'm also on Instagram, Kayla Ybanez. That's where I hang out and spend the most of my time.
Awesome. Well, Kayla, thank you so much for your time and for all the knowledge bombs, for sharing your story. I mean, it's really amazing to hear, what you've been able to accomplish. And I'm sure you're going to continue to see that success throughout 2021 and beyond. And if there's ever anything I can do to connect anybody or help you out in any way, feel free to reach out, and I hope to stay in touch for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kayla.